Mechwarrior 2 has finally been released. After 2 long years of waiting, gamers will finally get to play Activision's latest masterpiece.
Mechwarrior 2 was originally a pencil-and-paper miniatures game, but the intricate and sophisticated Mechwarrior universe with its giant fighting robots and rich storyline made it a natural for video gaming.
Whether or not gamers will find it worth 2 years of work remains a personal decision, but after playing it ourselves, it stands as the best game of its type ever made.
The story goes that a group of mech warriors left Earth and headed for the stars to create their own society. After settling some new worlds, the different groups of mech warriors took to fighting amongst themselves.
The game includes an absolute ton of information about the history of the Mechwarrior universe, but Mechwarrior 2 is about 2 warring clans of mech warriors, the clan Jade Falcons and the clan Wolf, who are fighting each other to prove their own dominance.
Something that anyone buying Mechwarrior 2 needs to know is that although there are 17 different clans in the Mechwarrior universe, the player can only have a career in either the Jade Falcons or Clan Wolf. None of the other clans are available for the player to have a career in. I was kinda disappointed when I realized those 2 clans were it.
But that's the way the storyline is developed around those 2 clans. Since the designers meant it that way, it's sort of hard to call it a design flaw.
There are 2 modes of play in Mechwarrior 2, Campaign Mode and the Arcade Mode. The Campaign Mode is where the player creates a pilot identity in one of the 2 clans, then pilots missions in an attempt to advance through the ranks.
The missions are very linear, meaning that the missions are pre-designed to go along with a pre-written storyline. Every time you create a new pilot, you must go through the exact same missions in the same order.
The missions are very well done, and include having to do things like destroy all of the enemies, find an object and destroy it, help your friendly mechs, and more. The missions have lots of different things to do in them, but like we said before, they're the same missions every time you play. There's nothing random about it.
The arcade mode is where the player can load up a mech and head out for battle. There's no mission to accomplish here except stay alive and kill as many bad guys as possible.
The player can choose from a variety of different environments, like a desert or an ice world, each affecting the mechs differently. According to these environments, the player will be assigned wingmen to help in the battle, or the player can choose an environment where it's just him against the bad guys.
The great thing about the arcade mode is that the player can decide what kind of mech he and his wingmen will pilot, as well as choosing what kind of mechs the enemy will have. It's the ideal place for practicing and trying out different styles of mechs without affecting your pilot's career.
Even though it's mostly a shooter, Mechwarrior 2 still has a little strategy involved. Some missions allow the player to take wingmen along, which the player can order around.
Orders are given through a pop-up menu, which lets the player tell his wingmen to attack a certain target or to fall into formation. Of course, if you're in the middle of battle, the last thing you want is a pop-up menu in the middle of your playing screen. The menu really should have been put in some different area of the screen.
I thought it was just fine, since I didn't have to take my eyes off the main screen to issue orders. The player can also choose different mechs to take on the mission. Each mech has its own strengths and weaknesses, so learning what mechs can do what and which weapons are the most useful for each type of mission will definitely help the player through the game.
Each individual mech can be customized by the player however they want. Everything about the mech can be changed, from the engine down to each little heat sink.
Each mech has a weight limit as well as a limited number of places to place equipment. Finding the right balance between both is not an easy thing. The designers have helped a little by providing several different configurations of each type of mech, giving the player a range of fighting choices without going through the trouble of changing everything themselves.
However, this is where the biggest problem of the game is found. There are 2 different clans to be in, but both clans use the exact same mechs. So as far as playing goes, there's really no difference in gameplay between the 2 clans. I don't really care that the storyline calls for both clans to have the same technology, but some variety really would have helped in this instance.
But let's get down to business. Gameplay. In short, Mechwarrior 2 looks, sounds, and plays better than any game of its kind. The mechs look just like the ones in the miniatures game, and move exactly like you'd expect them to.
The explosions are especially impressive. When something gets toasted, it's so real you can almost feel it. And the game played so smooth it was unbelievable. I played on a P60 in the lowest resolution, and the game ran like butter, and still looked great.
The higher resolution modes require some real power in the machine to get it to run smooth. But if you've got the power, Mechwarrior 2 goes from incredible to unhonkin' believable.
The sound in Mech 2 virtually matches the graphics. The digitized effects complete the simulation experience.
When I was walking by a burning building that was on my right, I heard it on the right side of my speakers. And as I looked in different directions in the game, the direction the sound came from changed accordingly.
You can also hear all of the machine gizmos and whatnots kicking into gear as you change the speed of your mech. It's a very involving experience.
One potential problem in Mechwarrior 2 is that there's a lot to control and keep track of.
No kidding. There's more controls and features on a mech in this game than I've seen in almost any other game, outside of very advanced flight simulators. But when compared to other games, Mech 2 is actually one of the easiest of its kind to control.
An unbelievable tutorial has been included to help familiarize the player with the mechs. The player gets hands-on experience in a mech as his instructor, through digitized speech, instructs him on various simulated missions.
I was very irritated by the fact that if I failed a lesson, the game did not allow me to try again immediately, but dumped me out to the main screen and made me restart the lesson.
Was Mechwarrior 2 worth waiting 2 years for? Well, while it's the best of its kind ever made, it still might not be to everyone's liking.
While providing a ton of information about all of the clans, the fact that the player can have a career in only 2 of them might annoy some people.
Also, the initial release of the game doesn't include multiplayer capabilities. Activision will release a patch in September for that.
But overall, the graphics and the sound are superb, and the game is very addictive.
The game is easy to play, fun to watch, and has lots and lots of stuff to blow up. If you're an action fan, Mechwarrior 2 is definitely worth it.